We begin with some breaking news. Police in Tennessee, in an area east of Knoxville, report one person has died after a shooting in a high school in Knoxville area. Several shots were fired. They say a police officer is one of the people injured. Police tweeted the scene of the shooting. It's at Austin East Magnet High School, and the campus is now secure. People are being asked to avoid the area. We'll pass along any details as we learn more.
And another developing story closer to us, New Mexico's Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham just signing the legislation legalizing the use and sale of recreational marijuana there. New Mexico will also be expunging the records of people with prior low-level cannabis convictions. Commercial sales for adults are set to start by April 1st of next year. New Mexico becoming the third state in just recent weeks to pass legislation legalizing recreational marijuana. Here in Colorado, after 5 schools closed down last week in Douglas County due to COVID-19 outbreaks, one family says quarantine notices at another school are too much.
9 News reporter Nelson Garcia talks to a mom and her son about quarantines they say are never ending.
When he heard full in-person learning was starting again at Chaparral High School.
And it's easier for me to learn while I'm at school.
Shane Hansen was excited. He'd been attending hybrid all year and spent a lot of time at home. Too much time.
Blanket quarantines is kind of how I'm describing it.
Suzanne Hansen says her son has been quarantined 6 times since the beginning of the school year, most recently last week, kicking him out of the building for 47 days and counting.
I'm an educator myself. I fully support and want to keep everyone healthy. However, this is not healthy for my son.
I just feel kind of hopeless. It seems like it's just going to keep happening, and I don't really see it changing.
The Hansens believe Chaparral is quarantining entire classrooms instead of students who are actually in close contact with someone testing positive.
It feels lazy to me. It feels like the effort to really see who is in close contact is not being done.
Douglas County Schools released a statement saying in part, quote, DCSD works closely with the Tri-County Health Department to consult on the implementation of state guidance and follow TCHD requirements as it pertains to state guidelines for school events and outbreaks in schools. Tri-County Health epidemiologist Dr. Bernadine Albanese says it's up to the schools.
Instead of just throwing everybody into quarantine, so whole classes aren't being quarantined, maybe just a few kids that need to be.
Dr. Albanese says under state guidelines, schools can either quarantine close contacts or entire classrooms, but it is up to the schools, not Tri-County Health.
Our go-to people at the school are not able to speak to a lot of topics that I think we have a right to understand. I want to work together and cooperate.
It just seems like we're doing it differently than we could be.
Shane just wants to go back to school. In Parker, Nelson Garcia, 9 News.
Suzanne Hansen says every time her son is quarantined, he tests negative after 5 days, but he can't return for 8 days. Her son has even shown that he has the COVID-19 antibodies from an exposure a long time ago, and he still can't return to school.
The United States set a new record over the weekend as far as getting COVID vaccine shots into arms, but more than 30 states are still seeing a rising number of cases with the more contagious variants spreading. The U.S. setting that record on Saturday. 4.6 million shots went into arms. More than 1 in 4 American adults now fully vaccinated. More contagious variants, though, continue to spread. Some hospitals are once again being stretched thin, and in the Midwest, the cases are surging. The epicenter seems to be Michigan, where the governor is asking for more vaccine doses. The CDC, though, says that's not the answer.
So when you have an acute situation, extraordinary number of cases like we have in Michigan, the answer is not necessarily to give vaccine. In fact, we know that the vaccine will have a delayed response. The answer to that is to really close things down, to go back to our basics, to go back to where we were last spring.
Well, the Biden administration so far is sticking to its plan of doling out vaccines based on population. Chief White House advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci says you never know where you're going to have another surge. The vaccine rollout could also be slowing this week as the amount of overall supply is expected to drop because of the production problems with millions of doses from Johnson & Johnson. A Chicago-based law firm today says several passengers from United Airlines Flight 328 are reporting severe post-traumatic stress because of that flight out of Denver. You'll remember it was a Boeing 777 that was en route to Honolulu out of Denver on February 20th. That's when the airliner lost the cowling from the right engine a few minutes after takeoff. The pilots then turned around, returning to DIA with passengers looking out the window and seeing the right engine engulfed in flames. Debris fell down on neighborhoods below. That caused property damage. The pilots, of course, did manage to land the airliner with one engine. The NTSB investigation might take up to a year or even more. But meanwhile, several passengers have now contacted the Clifford Law offices reporting severe trauma.
Today wasn't so bad. Sounds like we're going to get cooler, though, as the days go on. In fact, really cool.
You know, I've been looking at the forecast, Kim,
Have you?
and I'm putting rain and snow in there.
Are
but
you?
Let's check with Kathy. Sometimes she looks at this stuff as well.
Sometimes.
Just for fun.
See anything?
Yeah,
You agree with me totally.
Yes. It is April. Springtime in Colorado can mean rain, thunderstorms, or snow, and we certainly might see all of that this week. Outside right now, it's still dry. We've got the stratocumulus deck over the city. Not a lot happening with that yet, but things will certainly be changing. It's beautiful in the high country today. No issues with travel at all, and this whole cloud deck's going to shift east. Temperatures cooler air moving in from the north. So we've been in the 40s for most of the afternoon. The really cold air is still to the north of us, and we're kind of on the western fringe of the coldest air, which continues to push all the way down into the southern plains. We've also got winds out of the east and northeast. That slight upslope with the increase in moisture means there may be some foothill snow showers overnight tonight. I think there's a chance that maybe we'll see a few rain or snowflakes tomorrow, but a few rain showers, but not a whole lot going on for the next 24 hours. Things start to change Tuesday into Wednesday with the arrival of that second system. So mostly cloudy tonight. Temperatures will certainly be cool for some areas, and there may be a little bit of snow for areas up near the Boulder and Broomfield areas and west of I-25 there, but not expecting much here. So temperatures in the 40s now under cloudy skies will stay there. And in our main weather segment, we'll talk about the Tuesday rain and snow forecast and also the outlook for the high country bracing for accumulating snow.
Thanks, Kathy. Denver police have identified the man they believe caused a deadly crash over the weekend. This was in the Highlands area. One person was killed and a child was critically injured. 49-year-old Patrick Layden is being held for investigation of vehicular homicide. This is in connection to a crash at 32nd and Lowell on Saturday. The child injured is in critical condition. The child is expected to survive, though. 9 News reporter Victoria De Leon has more.
This is the Highlands neighborhood. This is where I grew up.
For the last 7 years,
Before I worked here, I grew up down the street.
Ryan Frazier has worked at the Pizza Alley on 32nd and Lowell.
967 is going on the second car.
He's a delivery driver and no stranger to the traffic here.
You go from 65 miles on the freeway to 30 miles here in a matter of a couple blocks, and some people abuse that and they speed around.
Saturday, he saw firsthand just how devastating speeding can be.
I mean, I could tell from all the way down there that he was going way too fast. He was just cruising down, going 80 miles an hour and killed somebody.
Home security footage shows the driver speeding down a residential street moments before the fatal crash.
I can't even think about it without. Sorry.
The aftermath was hard to watch even from a distance.
I mean, I'm doing okay. We had some coworkers who jumped in to assist at the very beginning, and I think they might have witnessed a little bit more of the gruesomeness, and I think it's definitely weighing on them.
Today, a memorial continues to grow to honor the man who lost his life in that crash and a child in the hospital in critical condition.
I mean, stuff like that definitely makes me more frightened to be a driver on these roads.
Ryan believes there are things the city can do to start addressing some of the traffic concerns.
I know some neighborhoods, they make it so you can't do left-hand turns in intersections like this. Perhaps that would be an answer. Speed bumps, I think, would definitely help.
He's not sure if any of that would have made a difference on Saturday,
Yeah, sorry, I don't have much more.
but hopes the neighborhood he loves doesn't have to experience such devastation again. Victoria De Leon, 9 News.
We reached out to the city to see if they plan on making any more traffic improvements in the area. The Department of Transportation and Infrastructure says that after every fatal crash, they look at the results of DPD's investigation to see if any additional safety improvements need to be made. Tension and crowds are building near Minneapolis tonight. This is after a young black man was shot and killed by police in Brooklyn Center. That's a suburb about 10 miles from where George Floyd died last summer. The incident led to protests and looting. And all of this is happening as the Derek Chauvin murder trial begins week 3 of testimony. Jay Gray reports.
Barricades and officers surround the Brooklyn Center Police Department. A day after anger and violence spilled into the streets of the Minneapolis suburb, hundreds responding to the fatal shooting of 20-year-old Dante Wright by a police officer. Today, the city releasing body cam video from the incident. A warning, these images may be disturbing. Investigators say the video shows Wright trying to get away during a traffic stop. The police chief telling the community his officer made a deadly mistake.
It is my belief that the officer had the intention to deploy their taser, but instead shot Mr. Wright with a single bullet.
Wright was killed about 10 miles from the intersection where George Floyd died. The tension surrounding the new incident framing what was a pivotal day in the courtroom to begin week 3 of the Derek Chauvin murder trial.
Me and George, we grew up together.
With pictures from his life entered as evidence, Floyd's brother shares memories and the pain of his family's loss.
That's my mother. She's no longer with us right now, but that's my oldest brother, George. I miss both of them.
The emotional testimony, part of what's expected to be the closing day for prosecutors. That includes a cardiologist.
I believe that Mr. George Floyd's death was absolutely preventable.
And an expert on use of force. The high-profile case now set to take a dramatic shift, with the defense getting their turn with the jury. Jay Gray, NBC News, Minneapolis.
In addition, the Minnesota Twins postponed their game against the Boston Red Sox today because of the deadly police shooting last night. The team released a statement that reads, "Out of respect for the tragic events that occurred yesterday in Brooklyn Center and following the additional details in this evolving situation, the Twins have decided it is in the best interest of our fans, staff, players, and community to not play today's game." And in addition, the other 2 professional teams also canceled. The NBA canceled tonight's game between the Minnesota Timberwolves and New Jersey Nets. That's been postponed because of the shooting, and the Minnesota Wild postponed their game as well against St. Louis. The CDC says racism is a threat to public health. And next, we're going to talk to a psychologist to explain why.